What's up, guys? It's Jim with Awaken TCG, bringing you guys our weekly locals video once again every Saturday. And this week we are back with red and purple Luffy finally winning a poll. I think it's been probably since the very start of OP06. This guy has been in every single weekly poll, and he's lost every single one for about 2.5 months or so. So finally squeaking out the win over Queen. I think it was literally a 1% difference. Luffy finally winning one with, I think, 30% of the votes. And also, not to mention, this has been my main deck this set, guys. When I do not have to do the weekly locals videos and Wraith decides to do them, I'm usually playing this leader. I have won 2 or 3 locals with this guy. He's actually gotten me some really good success. And I love his matchup into Sakazuki specifically. I think it's one of the only leaders that can really crush Sokka and give him a run for his money, which is why I really like to play him. Not to mention Luffy being my favorite character. Perfect leader. Also, I love ramp. This is like the perfect leader that was made for me. So it was a ton of fun this set. Like I said, had some pretty good success with them. And this is the list that I ended up ending on. Really do like this list. It has its issues, you know, it's not perfect. But then again, no list really is. You have your preferences and you go with them. So with that said, I am going to go ahead and show you guys the list that I have been running throughout OP05. So first up here, no brainer, we've got 4 of Nami Searcher. As with every other red purple Luffy deck, we're running a ton of great Straw Hat Pirate cards to either end the game or stuff like Rad Beam to conserve our life, as we are a 3-life leader, and that is definitely a big problem. And Nami just makes this deck a lot more consistent. Not really much to talk about there. Next up here, let's get into our 2Ks. We have 4 of Usohachi. Honestly, this is pretty much just because it's a searchable Straw Hat 2K. You know, you can maybe switch this out for like Sanji. To be honest, in my entire career of playing this deck, this set, I don't think I played out Usohachi one time. His effect, like on paper, is technically not bad, especially against Sokka. But, I mean, there's just never a time to put him on board. So, he's a 2K that you can search. That's about it. And last up, we actually only run 8 2Ks. It's going to be these 4 and 4 right here. And our last 4 going to be Franosuke. Franosuke is a 2K that I actually have played multiple times. And I think he's won me at least a couple of games. It's not very common, definitely rare, but it does happen. The rush with an extra body will get you a win, especially against decks like NL, where you require extra swings to actually end games, because this is one of the mini decks that does not have a lot of swings. It's mostly just you go tall, and NL kind of eats those decks up. So definitely a good deck, or a good card. Great 2K that has pretty versatile uses. Next up here, let's get into our ramp. First up here, we have 3 of Zoro. Love this card. Also searchable off Nami. And obviously, its requirement being at 3 or less life to ramp. This leader is at immediately. So obviously, this is a no-brainer in this deck. Only thing is, there are a lot of matchups that can just remove it after you play it, so it doesn't really do anything. Especially Sakazuki, and with Sakazuki being the #1 deck in the meta, I really couldn't make myself run 4 of these. It's great in a lot of matchups like yellow, if you're going first and they can't end up playing Gadatsu after you play this card. It's pretty much unremovable and is going to get you a guaranteed ramp, which is great. Definitely a fantastic card, just in a little bit of a removal meta, which doesn't make it the greatest, which is why I put it at a 3 of. But next up here, we've got 4 of Basil Hawkins 4 cost. This card is pretty interesting. Obviously, if you can help it, you want to get the trigger to get it off one of your 3 life and then just get that free ramp, which can enable some crazy turns on the next turn. There was a game this week that I actually got 2 off of life, and it definitely helped me out. There was no doubt about that. You guys will see that later in the video. But this guy mostly is just for consistent ramp. I see a lot of people in this slot running John Bart. Don't get me wrong, I like John Bart. The body's good and everything. But if I'm rushing the 10 cost Luffy, I'm usually removing these bodies anyway. So I really don't care about the body, and I honestly value not as much the trigger over John Bart, but I value the 4-drop stat line. John Bart is a 4K, but you do need to tap 1 to do his ramp effect, which means he can only be used on 5 Dawn and up. So if I'm on 4, I want to see one of these two or our other ramp option, because if I can't ramp on my first turn, I really feel like I'm playing this deck incorrectly. The way I like to play this deck is pretty much just rush to 10 and play 10 cost Luffy, if I'm being honest with you guys. So for that reason, I prefer Hawkins. And last up here for our ramp, we have 4 of Lead Performer Disaster. This is a card that I have seen probably like every other red-purple Luffy deck. It's definitely not the most popular card ever, but the people that like it. People that don't like it, they don't like it. It's a brick in hand. Drawing it late game is not good. But it cannot be understated that going second, I would rather have this card in my hand over any other card in the game. Drawing 1 and ramping 1 is fantastic. This leader definitely struggles with hand size. He only gets 3 cards from life compared to other leaders 4 and 5. So naturally, he is going to be having the lowest hand sizes in the game, just off rip. And this card, ramping you a Dawn, and also at the same time allowing you to draw a card is just fantastic. And not to mention, it just does the main effect on trigger, which has popped off in more games that I can count. Just fantastic card in this deck, and I really, really do love it. Next up here, let's get into our blockers. First up, the absolute no-brainer. We have the 4 of Queen. I pretty much run this in every purple deck, honestly. Yeah, Purple Queen, guys. I know he's expensive, but that's because he's good. This card is just way too good not to run. This deck is a little bit low on blockers, so definitely a much needed card in this deck. I don't really think there's a slot in for this guy if you don't own him. Just the draw power combined with the fantastic 5/6 body can't really be undervalued. He saved me in a ton of situations where other blockers just couldn't do that. He's pretty much the only blocker, I think, in purple and red that can actually draw cards. So just absolute necessity in this deck for sure. Next up here, we got 4 of Trafalgar Law Blocker. This guy, great blocker. He's cheaper than Queen, so in some scenarios, I will play him if I do not have enough Dawn, and I know he's the only blocker that I can get out when I want to do the rest of my turn. Also, not to mention, obviously going to take those 2 cards out of hand with that on play. It does not always come in handy, but the times it does, oh my, is this card powerful? This card's very powerful. Not to mention a little known fact, but you can actually use the on play effect using the Dawn -1 even when they do not have 7 or more cards in hand. So you would basically use it, Dawn -1. They check their hand. Do I have 7 or more cards? I do not. So the effect basically just gets canceled. But you still did that Dawn -1. And you may be asking yourself, why would I want to do that? Well, that's because with this leader, you can actually reuse that Dawn that you just subtracted if you were already at 10 Dawn. So if I'm at 10 Dawn and I just play Law, you do Dawn -1, my leader can actually just bring it back for free. So it basically gives you 11 Dawn in a turn, which I like doing a lot. Definitely have done it many times when playing this deck, and I think it's a really, really good option for sure. Next up here, let's get into our big bodies. We've got Edward Newgate. Ever since this leader got printed, people were saying, yeah, this guy's amazing in this deck, and yeah, he is. I still run him. I ran him last set. I ran him this set. He's definitely your best card you can see. When you get to 8 Dawn, you can go right to 9 for free and play this guy. That is obviously a synergy point that people know is strong by now. Not searchable, which is probably the worst thing about this card. And also there are situations where you kind of just need to go for a game and he's pretty awkward in hand. But other than that, yeah, getting this guy out early, getting these ramps off and getting right into Ninebeard is definitely the best line of play you can get in this deck. So yeah, fantastic card in this deck and would not run any less than 4. Next up here, we have 5 cost Monkey D. Luffy. card I do not see every red purple Luffy running. Some of them run the 3-cost Zoro. Other ones just don't run either at all. This guy is just basically another way for me to go for game. He gets past blockers if you just attach 2 non, right? Which I was probably doing if I'm going for game anyway. Just basically another out for me if I don't see my cards that I need in games. This guy's another great card just that you can see. Also, one of the best cards to play mid-game. If I just lead performer last turn, I can use, on my next turn I'll be on 7. So I can actually use another lead performer, getting myself up to 8, which allows me to use my leader effect, getting another active Dawn. And with the active Dawn from lead performer and leader effect, you can actually play this guy out. Swing 6 and then swing 6 again with lead. It's probably one of my favorite lines with this deck. And then next turn, they'll probably remove it, but then you're just playing 10-cost Luffy anyway, just completely going at that face, because that is what this deck does, and that's what it is good at. And last but not least, for our big bodies, we've got my favorite card in this entire game. It is going to be 10-cost Monkey D. Luffy with those beautiful golden alt arts. Love playing this card, and to be honest, guys, this card is the reason I play this deck. I think this is the only deck in the game that actually makes sense to play 10-drop Luffy, like 100%. This is an absolute staple in this deck, and if you're not playing it, you're playing it wrong. So pretty much, love this card. The game plan is basically get them low enough to where you can drop this guy, and if you have Diable Jam in hand, or they just don't have any blockers on board, they lose the game. Really fun card, and yeah, as I'm saying, my favorite card in the game for a reason. Definitely has probably, out of, I'd say, 100 games I've played with this deck, let's just say he's probably ended 75 of them. So great, great card that you definitely need to run in this deck. Next up here, Diable Jambe is going to be the 1-cost event that allows any Straw Hat not to be blocked, obviously including your leader, including this 10-cost Monkey D. Luffy, which is usually the target we're going to use it on, or even Zoro, or Frankie in some scenarios. It really depends, but usually it's going to be one of these two, on your leader or on 10-cost Luffy. Sometimes on both. I've definitely finished off games where I use 2 Jambes and then just go crazy at life. But yeah, basically going to end you games. If Sokka wants to board up with a Rebecca, a Borsa, and whatever else, you can just say, I don't really care about that. I'm just going to Jambe up and go crazy at leader. Definitely another card that has won me multiple games. It is a complete checkmate in situations if your opponent does not have a card in hand. If you have it in hand and you're saying, oh, okay, they have 0 life, and I have Jambe in hand, if I survive this turn, I just win next turn. So basically, complete checkmate card, and is going to win you a million games on this deck. Next up here, let's get into our defensive events. We've got 4 of Rad Beam. Rad Beam, obviously, everybody knows this card got restricted back in the day in OP04. Searchable off Nami, 1 for 4, is immediately online after you take 1 life with your leader. I think people know how good this card is, but it is just extra good in this deck, as it's basically immediately online. And we sometimes, especially when we play Newgate on 9, we'll usually only have 1 Dawn up to use on our opponent's turn anyway. So just really, really great, and the best counter event we could definitely ask for. And last but not least, we have 2 Gum Gum Jet Gatling. This one going to be another searchable counter off Nami, going to allow us to get these lead performers out of hand when we do not need them anymore, when we've already reached 10 Dawn. Going to allow us to get extra 10 costs or 9 beers out of hand that we really just don't need, or extra Jambes, because there are hands where you get multiple Jambes early and they're just not doing anything for you, so you need to get rid of them with the Jet Gatling. I would actually run 3, maybe, but I feel like this deck is just so tight. But like, it would probably be a Luffy, if anything, swap a Luffy for a Gatling. But I think that would be my only swap, if I were to make a swap in this whole deck. Because you'll see in the games today, I actually run into some hands where I have like absolutely no counter. I used to run 3, but I moved it down for 1 extra Jambe because I just wasn't seeing it enough. But after a little bit more testing lately, I definitely think I want to go back to 3 in favor of replacing it for the Luffy. But as for our games today, This is the deck list I was running. I honestly did not do the best. It was probably the worst tournament I've ever had in this deck. Of course, the 1 week you guys asked me to play this deck, it's going to be my worst week, but what can you do? There were some fun games, but anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let's go ahead and check out those games anyway. And getting into game 1 here, we are going to be going against Red and Purple Kid. So, very interesting leader that I actually don't think I've played against once with this deck. But from what I understand, I mean, it seems like it would be a good matchup for me. But then also, on the other hand, with the plus power every turn towards the late game, seems like it might be a little scary if I don't see enough counter. But we will definitely have to see. And we'll definitely have fun with this game regardless. 2 ST10 leaders duking it out. But anyways, he actually ended up winning the dice roll, and I think he took second. So I'm going to be going first, and it looks like we are going to be playing nothing on that first turn, unfortunately. Now on his second turn, he's going to play that 2-cost Sanji, so we're going to make sure he gets below that 3 threshold, and I cannot keep him from doing it. Don't think I was going to do it anyway, but going to swing 9. He's going to take. Unfortunately, do not have anything to play early right now. So with a 4 Dawn up here, he's actually going to play 2 for that Hyogoro. Going to give him 2 Rested Dawn to attach to that Sanji right now. And that Hyogoro going to actually buff something as well. Very interesting choice, as I have not really seen any deck ever run that card, I'm not going to lie. So he'll actually grab a Rad Beam off of that search there. Can search any Kid Pirate, Heart Pirate, or Straw Hat Pirate. And then he'll activate Sanji's effect, putting on 2 Rested Dawn, gaining 2k, and swinging 7. We'll choose to take that. Getting a Hawkins trigger and immediately ramping 1 here. And then he will actually swing, looks like he used leader effect. Oh no, he used Hyogoro on leader, and then he swung 7. And we actually triggered out another Hawkins. So we're already on 7 Dawn right now, which is pretty hilarious. When we should have been only at 5. Definitely a hyper ramp. So we're going to put 1 on that Hawkins, swing at the Hyogoro. We do not want it to be doing anything again. And then we'll play that Lead Performer Disaster, ramping to 8 and drawing 1. And then we'll use a leader effect to ramp to 9. Now, with 4 Dawn up, we could play a Law, and we actually do, because he does have 7 cards in hand. And going to pick 2 of those randomly to trash here. Looks like we get a Rush Luffy and a Punk Rotten, which is definitely not a bad pull for us. Sure, they have no counter, but definitely glad that they're out of hand, especially for the fact that we're already at 1 life. But anyways, we're going to go 6 at lead. Not really wanting to swing at Sanji, because I'm just thinking if he does want to use Sanji effect again, he can go ahead and do so, because we'll just kill him that much faster. But anyways, he actually is going to be on 5 at Dawn now, after he Dawn -1'd himself last turn. Oh, no, I don't think he did. Sorry, I'm very mistaken. Okay, no, he's actually going to be at 6, and he's going to swing 6 at leader after popping the Law with a Jet Pistol, and then he'll just use Sanji to swing at that Hawkins we swung with last turn, leaving 1 Dawn up, and we do know that he drew the Rad Beam, so definitely going to know to play around that. But on 10 Dawn now, we do have the Gear 5th Luffy in hand, so I think it's just going to be a no-brainer, throw that down right now. So yeah, going to snap in that 10. Get it down extremely early, and then going to use leader effect to ramp 1 active, and then we use 10 drop effect to get another 1 active. And then going to swing 7 at that Sanji. Don't have a lot of counter in hand, and we do not want to die next turn, so definitely going to need to get that off board if we want to be living anytime soon. But anyway, we're going to play that Nami and grab a much needed Rad Beam, as we really don't have much counter in hand right now. Then we'll put 1 on leader, swinging 7. He'll actually give us a 2k and a 1k, and then we'll go 12, bringing him down to 2. So opponent now going to be on 8 Dawn. 8 Dawn, no, 7 Dawn. Actually did a Dawn -1. So going to be a little bit scary this turn. It looks like he actually has a Punk Rotten. No, that is not a Punk Rotten. That is a Punk Vice. If he did have a Punk Rotten right now, he could probably go max on lead and just win the game right now. But he's actually going to choose to play out of Heat, which is definitely a little scary in the future turns. But we're actually going to be putting him in a pretty scary spot on this next turn anyway. So he'll actually attach 3 to lead and use leader effect. Going 10 at our leader, we'll be forced to use a rad beam and a 1k to get out of that one. Now leaving 1 Dawn up for him again. So knowing that he's just using that rad beam. So we'll use the 10 drop effect to get to 8 and then leader effect to immediately get back to 9. That is the power of this deck, and just turning Dawn -10 into literally 9 after your opponent's next turn is pretty insane. Gonna play that queen out, getting rid of that lead performer that we absolutely do not need anymore, and getting a much needed blocker on board. Going to put 1 on lead and swing 7. Thinking about it here, looks like he is gonna choose to use that rad beam, gonna conserve life as much as he can, and then we will swing 12, easily getting him down to 1. Now with 4 cards in hand, looks like he actually did finally draw into that Punk Rotten. But we do have the queen on board at this point, so it is not as scary. But he's actually going to throw down that Zoro, and then probably use one of those Rested On to buff his leader. But he's actually going to put 3 on Zoro and go ahead and swing 8. We'll use the Jet Gatling to get rid of a Jambe, knowing that he really doesn't have any blockers we need to be worrying about. So pretty much a useless card in this matchup. And now I think we have around 5 or so cards in hand. Yes. And he has 2 more swings that could definitely be an issue. With that 2 Dawn up, I was definitely scared of Punk Rotten, so I really didn't want to have to be affected by that. He'll just use leader effect, swing 7, and we'll give him a 2k going up to 8. And that'll actually bring Killer to a 6k at this point. So if he were to attach that 2 Dawn, he would swing 8, and I don't know if we have the counter for it, so we would probably just have to block it. And it looks like that's what he's going to do. He'll go 8 to leader, and yeah, we'll be forced to block that. Looks like we only have 2 1ks in hand at the moment. But now this turn we are going up to 10 Dawn, and he actually only has 3 cards in hand, so we will go 12 and 16, and that is going to be the game. Really good game there, and kind of back and forth. Definitely was a little bit scared for a second as we did not have a lot of counter. And getting into game 2 here, we're actually going to be going against Ororo Noa Zoro himself. Definitely a scary matchup, and I think I've seen a matchup chart before, and this matchup goes 50-50. I think it just depends on how much counter I see. But we're going to go ahead and go first again. I think we lost dice roll once again. Was getting really unlucky today, unfortunately. But he's actually going to get double Nami on turn 1 and search out a Rush Zoro and a 2k Brook. Some of the best cards you can find right now. But anyways, we will just go ahead and swing 6. We'll take, and we will get that Zoro Jiro on curve. So he's going to swing 6, play Zoro, swing another 6. We actually had to take both of those hits because if you haven't seen our hand, we have 0 counter in hand, which is really, really bad against Zoro. So we're going to go ahead and swing 5 at his Zoro with ours, ramping 1. Up to 5 active Dawn here. We'll use Lead Performer Disaster, bringing ourselves up another Dawn, and ramping and drawing a card. We'll put 1 of those Dawn on leader, swinging 7 at the Zoro. We just want the least amount of lethal attackers at the moment right now because, as I said before, we genuinely, I think, maybe have 2 1Ks in hand right now. I think we actually got a Hawkins off of life and chose not to activate it just because I needed the 1k counter in hand. So now passing back to him. After he does end up countering out of that Zoro attack, he's going to go ahead and go 6k lead twice. We will give him a 1k out of both. Probably the only 2 cards we had in hand for counter. He'll swing at that Zoro with Nami. Have to deal with it. And then he'll play the Magra on his Nami, buffing her to 7 or 8k, I think. And then we'll actually be forced to use the Rad Beam. And now dropping another Nami and grabbing another card in hand. Definitely a board that we have no business dealing with as we just do not have enough swings for it. So we'll go ahead and play the new gate, getting ourselves up to 8 and swinging at that Zoro. Now with 8k and all these little 1k or 1 cost 2k guys on board, we really don't have to worry about them. He's going to have to do a lot of investment if he wants to attack with them, which means he will not be developing anything that's actually very threatening. So we're going to put 3 on leader and just go 8 to 8. We will give him a 1k counter. And now deciding what to do with this Dawn this turn, I think he's just going to go ahead and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on Nami and swing another 8 at lead. We actually only have a Rad Beam to counter out right now, so this is a pretty awkward decision. Because we're going to have to show him that we like literally don't have any counter, or we're going to have to take this 8-8 swing, which is not a good look as well. But we actually do end up taking it, favoring that we want the Rad Beam for later if we can survive. But now on 10 Dawn, we do have the 10 cost Luffy, but with 4 life on his side, there is absolutely no way that I can win this game. But, I mean, we kind of have to go for it. Or we could just play the queen. There are a few options in this moment. And it looks like we're going to go ahead and go at leader. We'll go 9 and we will go 10 and we'll go queen to stall. So putting him in a position where finishing off with Luffy is actually an option. And queen cycling our hand so it is not as mega bricked. We actually got rid of a 5 cost Luffy because we have 2 others in hand. So definitely not a good look right now against Zoro. He does have a lot of chumps on board, but realistically, we really can't deal with him. And leaving 3 Dawn up right now because we do have a Rad Beam in hand. I think we only have 1. But it is one of our only counter sources. So he's going to put 1 on lead, go 6. He'll play the Zoro, go 6 again. We'll again be forced to massively over counter with another Rad Beam. Just showing him that we do not have enough power to counter out of these attacks, unfortunately. And now with 6 Dawn remaining, he's actually going to spend 5 on the Luffy and put 1 to go 7. We have 0 counter in hand, so we'll just have to block that. And now with Newgate and Luffy and 2 life, we really just have to go for game. This is the only way we can win this. He has a ton of cards in hand, but unfortunately this is our only option. So we'll go 10 to lead with Newgate, bottom deck that thing with the 10 cost Luffy. Go 7k lead, he'll give us an easy 2k plus 1k. And now, both of these swings need to hit. We know that, so we don't even use 10 drop effect. You're going to go 10 to lead. If he can counter out of this, we lose the game. He's going to go 2k, 2k, and double 1k. And that is going to be the match. And getting into our final game of the day here, we're actually going to go against Katakuri, which is unfortunately one of Red Purple Luffy's worst matchups. And we actually did end up losing dice roll once again, so we are forced to go first. Fortunately, we do have the 1 cost Nami, finding that 2k Usopp, which is not a terrible start. He's going to go ahead and have his 1-drop Searcher as well. Going to play Pudding, finding that Pero for next turn, which is probably the best play combined with Leader Swing. And then he's going to have a no play after that and pass back to us. So we'll go ahead and put 2 on Leader, showing him we do not have the Zoro, unfortunately. We'll play that Nami down and grab the Zoro 1 turn too late. But better late than never, usually. So after taking the 8k swing, we're going to be on him, and he's going to go ahead and swing 7k to lead. We'll go ahead and take after he plays the Pero. Now on us, on 5 Dawn. Thinking what to do here, but we're probably just going to play down that Zoro after we do swing 7. He's going to have to give us a 2 and a 1, which he decides to do. And then we will throw down that Zoro and pass back to him with 1 Dawn up. So if we did have a Rad Beam, it could definitely be an option. But now on him, on 6 Dawn, his best play this turn is probably swinging 6, 7, and then developing a 4 cost, if I had to guess. And it looks like he's not going to do that, but he's going to go 6k at lead. We will look at our hand here, which does not have a ton of 1k counters, I think. But yeah, we're going to have to give him a 2k for that one, unfortunately. And then he's actually going to put 4 on Pudding. Swinging 6 again, we will just choose to take that one with not too much counter in hand. And he'll look at our life there with Leader and swing 7, and we'll give him another 2k. So now on 7 Dawn this turn, we do have Zoro, so we can get to 8, fortunately. We'll go ahead and swing at Pudding with our Nami. Gonna just give us that, which is the correct play. Gonna put 1 on Zoro here, and just choose a swing at Leader. He'll give us a 1k regardless after we ramp 1 off Zoro, and then another 1 off Leader. Now with 8 Dawn active, we will choose to put 3 on Nami, swinging another 5 at Leader. Do not have a ton of great plays right now. He's actually going to get a Cracker trigger, which is a bit of a problem. We want the least amount of bodies on board possible. And we're just going to throw down that Law for a bit of defense. Obviously, if we do get to a point later in the game where he has 1 life, that is a perfect target for Amaru, so we do want to use it before that can happen. But definitely going to want to go to 0 before he gets to Tenmom. So he'll go 5 at Zoro. We will give him that. Then he'll go 5 at the Nami, and he'll play the 7-cost Big Mom after swinging 7. We will choose to actually crit the life, knowing that we do need to go for game, and the least amount of life he has, the better. So we're going to go 5 to lead here. Looks like he only has a 2k in hand, so he's going to choose to take. And that is going to be a Beige. Yeah, Beige in this matchup is really, really bad because it makes it so we actually can't swing 7 with leader here, which is probably going to cost us the game. So on our free turn, we will ramp with 10-drop Luffy right now. And then probably just swing twice. We'll go 8 at leader. And there's another trigger. That is an Amaru. Going to trash 2 cards he doesn't need and heal back. Unfortunately, cooking us with that one. And then obviously going to get the Shirahoshi on top. If those last 3 triggers were not enough, the 4th Shirahoshi is definitely going to seal this deal, giving him whatever he needs if he didn't already have this game in the bag. So going to trash a Perospero and a Satori right now. Unfortunately, not enough cards in hand to really survive this next turn, I don't think. Whereas if we could survive this next turn, there's definitely a possibility that we can win this game, as he only has 1 life remaining. Only thing that could probably save him is a blocker, but even then if we had a Jambe, we could possibly play around it. So now just going to figure out how to allocate his Dawn right now. He's going to go a ton on Big Mom and swing a 15. We'll go ahead and give him a 1 for a Rad Beam and then tap another 1 for another Rad Beam going up to 14. And then we'll give him a 2k going up to 16. Now with his 3 remaining Dawn, he's going to swing with all 3 of his characters. He'll swing 6 with Perospero and another 6 with Cracker. And that, unfortunately, is going to be the game. Pretty unfortunate turn of events there. And that is going to be the video, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for watching. We do these locals videos every week if this is your first one. I think Iceberg actually is winning this week's poll to be our leader for next week. A couple of the comments, you guys are thinking that I have a crazy list cooked up. It's an okay list, guys. Don't get your hopes up. I'm not saying I'm going to do the best. We're definitely going to take it, and we're going to see how we do. It's going to be fun. But if you don't know, that is actually going to be our second to last OP05 locals. So on this poll next week, if you guys check our community page on Thursdays, we do these polls on Thursday, you'll be able to vote for the last leader we're going to play in OP05. So if there is any leader that we haven't played yet this set that you guys want to see us play, please let me know in the comments of this video so I can add it for our newest leader to the next poll. Anything from, I don't know, we have not played a ton of crazy decks, so even if it's some random non-meta deck, we will definitely slot in there for you guys if that's what you want. But as far as our Red Purple Luffy performance today, as I said, this is basically my main deck, and I really do enjoy playing this deck. There are definitely a bit of polarizing matchups. Like, I think yellow in general is really bad, as you saw in that last game there. If they hit Beige or they hit Amaru, it basically seals the deal, as you just don't have enough swings to beat them, and you don't really have the luxury to play around them, as you do need to go for game, since these big bodies of yellow are really going to end you really fast. So just an unfortunate matchup there. NL being worse. Fortunately, we didn't see it today, but we definitely saw yellow's wrath for sure. Not to mention that Zoro game that we lost as well. Not seeing any counters early is really rough. He swung 6 twice early, and even with 7 cards in hand, I was forced to take because I literally had no counter in hand. That is really bad for us, and that is probably why we lost that game. So, unfortunately, guys, as I said, probably my worst week at locals with Red Purple Luffy. Sorry it was for the week that we do the video on it, but that is just how the cookie crumbles. I do still think this is a great deck and a extremely fun deck, guys. If you love playing these big bodies and you love 10-cost Luffy, this is the deck for you for sure. I don't think it's amazing going into next set, but I'm glad I could do one last hurrah for you guys for this amazing leader and amazing list that I really do enjoy. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a great day. I'm going to be out of here. Peace.